が消えかかるそれがオレンジャー熱い血流れる鋼のマシン
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 3 of For Your Eyes Ohranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Chouriki Sentai Ohranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show. We share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J. With me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how you doing today, bud?
I'm good, man.
Nice.
I am good.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
I know that there are other reasons that you are good, but I like to think that part of the reason that you are so good is that we, today, are watching episode 3 of Chouriki Sentai Ohranger called Crisis, The Secret of Chouriki.
Well, man, it's not hurting my mood any. I can say that much.
Nice. Well, let's talk about the other things that are influencing your mood, Dave. Let's roll right into our opening segment, Dave, because shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. What is our first star of the week?
So, our first star of the week, Matt, is that it is show weekend.
Nice.
So, sorry, for those of you who have just joined the show, I'm a high school teacher, and I teach English, but I also teach theater. And so I help run the musical along with the choir director, and then I do other shows as well. So it's show weekend. And actually, Matt, more importantly, it has just stopped being show weekend. I got home from the last show, and man, I love doing the shows. I love it. I love working with kids and putting on these productions, and I work with a bunch of really talented kids, and it's super, super cool. But boy, howdy, does it take up time.
Yeah, and we are catching you in the immediate sort of relief of being done with this. Like, you got home from the last show, like 40 minutes ago?
Yeah, I got home for the last show, and I sorted myself out, and we're recording this thing right now. So I am actually in the middle, because it's like I work all week, and then I kind of work all weekend, and then I work all week again. Like, I don't have days. It's just 12 straight days. And this is super great, Matt. Somebody at the district did not pay attention to the scheduling, because the show is the same weekend every year. Like, it's always right in this zone. And parent-teacher conferences are scheduled for tomorrow. So I
should not be laughing at that, but I am anyway.
It's fine. It's fine. So I will be at work for 13 hours straight tomorrow.
Good gravy.
That's going to be just awesome. It's going to be so great for me, for that thing to happen to me. But the show was great, and the kids nailed it, and that was super cool, man. I think a couple of them do listen to this show. I may have mentioned it at one point.
Do they really?
Yeah, somebody was talking about Power Rangers, and I let it slip. To just some of my theater kids. So some of the kids that I work with a little more extensively, and I know them pretty well. So great job, guys, if you happen to listen to the show. So that's really it, man. I'm just listen, I wish I had jokes about this. It's just a star because it's such a sweet sense of relief. It's
No, dude, I get it.
Yeah, it's if you go ice skating, and then ice skating is fun, and then you take the skates off and it feels so incredible.
Oh yeah, it is. Even if you don't like ice skating, it is worth ice skating just for that feeling of taking the skates off at the end of the day.
So it's like that. So the show is over, and my life is going to go back to normal for 3 whole weeks before rehearsals for the next show start. But it's a less intense show, so it's a big deal. So that's the first star of the week, Matt. What is our second star of the week?
Dave, our second star of the week is that as we record this, it is very early November, which means that we have just had Halloween.
Yeah.
So, happy Halloween to anyone out there.
Have you belated Halloween?
At this point, it's a week or two late once you hear this. But we had our office Halloween party, which is something that we do every year. Last year, it was a star because it was one of the most awkward experiences ever, because it was we got ambushed with a murder mystery dinner at lunch in the office. You may recall that from a year ago.
I do.
This year was a lot more low-key, partially because we're doing partially because of, feedback from last year, and partially because we're doing a bunch of construction in the office right now, so there's not actually a ton of room in where we normally would have this sort of stuff.
Oh, okay.
So we had to sort of like recalibrate and like scale it down and move it to another part of the building, which was totally fine by me. But they did manage to bring a little of that magic back, Dave, from the previous year, just to get just a little bit of awkwardness in. They brought in a performer, like you do.
Like you do, I guess?
But the problem with this is that the performer they brought in was what I can only assume to be like, had a Halloween-themed act, but he was an Elvis impersonator.
Oh.
So...
Okay.
I'm sitting at my desk, right? And the calendar event comes up on my computer like, oh, you have a, work party to go to downstairs. So I finish up whatever email I was working on, and I shut down my computer for the afternoon, and I walk over because I know there's going to be food and drinks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to not be having to sit at your desk and actually be able to socialize with your coworkers. And so I walk over, and there's like I'm catching the very tail end of what seems to be a like musical intro act where this guy has not yet appeared, right? We're just listening to like the script of some spooky, like basically like some Goosebumps story, right? To get you in the mood. And then this guy rolls up in the sort of early Elvis outfit, but not the early Elvis like human age. This man was clearly into his 40s, but was dressed like Elvis from his 20s.
Like young, okay.
And he pulls out a microphone and starts singing, and I walked back to my desk and turned my computer back on and went back to work. Because he was standing sort of, I had to, there's only one staircase in that part of the building. So to be able to get down there, I would have to sort of walk past where he was, and I was just not willing to like risk accidentally having to have this man look at me and have me look at him and have our eyes meet, because then like all of the embarrassment that he should have been feeling, I would have felt in that moment, and my bones would have turned into jelly and my entire structure would have collapsed. So I just needed to go to work for a half an hour and let him sort of like, sing himself out a little bit to need to take a break. I go down, I get a little lunch, I get a few, I get a drink. It's fine. Eventually I do go back to my desk to get a little more work done because I had been traveling a bunch and I was super behind on stuff.
Yeah.
Now, as the party's wrapping up, I think, it would be nice if I just went down and grabbed myself like a Coke. Like grab a Coke for the road. That's fine.
Yeah. Man, first of all, I'm loving this story. Don't get me wrong. I just keep expecting each element to be the conclusion. Like, I went back to my desk and then it was done. And now, like, I can tell that you are leading into yet another element of this story, and I'm genuinely, like, slightly horrified as to where this might be going.
Well, the good news is that it's not going to get much worse than what it was before. It's just a ratcheted up version of the exact same thing I already told you. Because when I got back this time, the guy was still singing. The guy had remarkable stamina. This was like an hour and a half later, and he'd been doing a little crowd work, but mostly he'd been singing. And by the way, he was not just singing Elvis songs. He was just singing for a while.
Because I feel like if you had 2 hours, you could probably get, in about half an hour, I think you can probably get through most of Elvis's catalog that, like, everybody recognizes.
Oh, yeah. And at some point he was trying to, and I think it eventually did succeed in getting people to like cut up and do karaoke, but we were not at that point of the day yet, because by that point I had already like packed up and left because I just could not handle it anymore. But at this point I went to go get myself a Coca-Cola, and not only was he standing near the staircase, he was literally standing on the landing of the staircase and had gone through a costume change. And so now he was full on like Vegas Elvis on the stairwell, and I felt like I was a prisoner. Like, there was literally no way for me to get past him. And I just stood there at the top of the stairs, sort of dumbfounded, like, what do I do? I can't go.
Is there like a fire escape you could have used? Like,
I mean, there was another staircase on like the opposite side of the building, but the coolers with the drinks in them were like right at the bottom of the staircase, and that would have put me right back in his zone, and I was not willing to risk that.
You know, Matt, you and I share a lot of things as brothers, brothers often do. And one of the things that we share that really just get like a deep sense of, I don't know, satisfaction or maybe fraternal connection is a distaste for mandatory frivolity.
Oh, no, it's the worst. And don't get me wrong, I love frivolity. Frivolity is the tops, but...
Yeah, no, I love having fun. But anytime someone's like, you're in a situation where it's just like, no, it's time for fun now. And, like, we have decided, like, what the fun will be. Please just let me go back to work.
Yeah, and by the way, all day, all I was thinking was, I don't want to be doing work right now. I would much rather, like, go down and get a bite to eat. But as soon as this thing started, my immediate impulse was, I've got to get back to work.
I need to leave. Yeah, we moved into a new building this year. Like, it did a bunch of renovations. And on the first day when, like, all the staff was back, we had a scavenger hunt around the building. Oh, yes. Yeah, and not like an actual find things, like get pictures of yourself doing X. It was awful.
But you know what, Dave, is not awful? Is whatever our third star of the week is, Dave. What is that third star of the week?
Okay, well, actually, Matt, you may have spoken a tiny bit too soon. Our third star of the week is the new ABC television series, The Inhumans.
Oh, okay. I have not been watching this ABC television show.
Okay, so here's the deal. It is being, I think this show is being unfairly maligned.
Okay.
Because, so we popped up Beth and I, my wife, we started watching the first episode out of a sense of like loyalty, I guess, if nothing else, because everything I have read about this show, everything online is like, this show is garbage and it should never have been put on television, and like everybody involved in it should like never work in Hollywood again, or like, I'm being slightly hyperbolic, but not too much. But we're like, all right, man. You know, like, I'm a comic book guy, and I like Marvel stuff, and so I'm gonna watch the first episode of this show. So we finished the first episode, and we're like, well, we'll definitely watch the second one. Like, we just kind of kept watching. It's like, okay, it's not as good as Luke Cage.
Sure.
It's not as good as Daredevil. It's not as good as Jessica Jones. Like, it's just not. And I think the reason that everybody is getting so down on this is that they were fully expecting it to be like as good as those shows.
Okay, from early reviews, that was not my understanding. My understanding is that everyone was
me too.
Everyone was prepared for it to be not as good as those shows, but were judging it like according to that same standard. Which, listen, like, they are both TV shows. Like, one should be as good. Each one has the capacity to be as good as the other. So it is totally fair to judge them against each other. I mean, so far, I don't actually know anything about the Inhumans show other than it exists and Lockjaw's in there. So
here's
like,
okay.
Is it Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. level good even?
I think it's as good as like the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, listen, it is not like a blow your socks off home run from episode 1. But like, it's as good as The Flash. It's as good as like Green Arrow.
Okay.
It's like, it's fine. Like, it's a fun show about people with superpower. Like, okay, there are a handful of weird elements about it. Like, they messed with Karnak a little bit, which I don't love. And, like the sort of power levels of various characters have been scaled out a little bit. Like, Black Bolt is not nearly as powerful as he is in the comics.
Well, I mean, listen, and like anybody who is going to make quibbles about a show based on individual characters' power levels, like, that is not a conversation I'm interested in sharing with them.
Yeah, definitely. But like, it's fine. Like, there's a couple of like really fun, like, there are a handful of things that aren't great about it. Like, the CGI is like not super great. And I heard a lot of complaints about the setting, like on Adelan, where they're like, "Oh, it's very like cold and weird." I'm like, guys, it's literally an inhuman city on the moon. Like, I'm not sure how you want it to look, but I thought it looked fairly cool. And the dude who plays, I feel bad I didn't look up his name. The dude who plays Black Bolt, I think is actually kind of killing it. Yeah. Because if you don't know anything about the comics, Black Bolt, the character, he has this. I'm sorry, let me use his full name, Blackagar Boltagon.
Thank you. It's good to respect the man.
Right, and he has like a super powerful voice that he actually can't control. So if he speaks at all, it's like super destructive because of like powers. And so the actor can't talk for basically any part of this. And they do a really, really good job of making him like a fully fleshed out character and having him like communicate with people through Medusa, his wife. And he's very expressive without actually ever saying anything, and you do really get a sense that he is the king and is a regal character and has... So basically what I think is that people have been waiting for Marvel to put something out that they can hate on, and Inhumans is like... I'm not going to say it's the weak link in the chain of Marvel stuff, but like, it's not bad. It's just not like incredible.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the movies are typically good. I haven't seen the new Thor yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I think the movies are typically good, although, some of them are weaker than others. I think the shows have honestly been kind of hit or miss. Like, the ones that are good are extremely good, and the ones that are not as good are pretty forgettable. And I am glad to hear that this one is not so bad as to be like a really noticeable blemish, even if it's not like the shining thing that they've done.
Yeah, like it's fine. Oh, actually, Matt, very briefly, and then I do want to hear about the fourth star. Have you seen the new trailer for Black Panther?
Oh, no. I already know that I'm going to watch that movie, like, if at all possible, opening weekend. And so I'm not watching trailers. Like, I watched the first trailer.
Yeah, No. I had not seen the first trailer. I usually allow myself one trailer. Because like you, I'm just like, listen, I'm going to go see the movie. I don't want to get too much of it seen beforehand. But I hadn't seen the first one, so I watched the second one. Oh my God, it looks so good. It looks so good. Okay, Matt, so what is our fourth star of the week?
Fourth star of the week, Dave, is another television show, but not a recent one.
Oh, okay.
So I was looking on Hulu the other day, and I saw that there was a documentary called Too Funny to Fail that was like a Hulu-produced documentary about the history of the creation and subsequent collapse of the Dana Carvey show. Huh. Now, you remember the Dana Carvey show, don't you? Like,
yeah, very fondly. It was on all like 6 episodes of it.
I think they made 8 episodes and they only aired 7 of them. But yeah, like, I remember loving this show when I was a kid.
Which,
for the couple of weeks it was there.
Right, which was incomprehensible to me because that show was hilarious.
Yeah. And I feel like there are sort of 2 great sort of like lost short-term sketch comedy shows of the 90s. One was the Ben Stiller show and one was the Dana Carvey show. And I feel like people of that age are either they were either a fan, maybe they were a fan of both, but like I feel like they were sort of 2 different worlds. I was definitely like a Dana Carvey show guy when that show existed.
Yeah.
And like kind of never knew what happened because it showed up and then like immediately went away. And it's this really interesting documentary about how like it was just a weird show and they put it on primetime right after Home Improvement. And like the people involved in the show were not sort of prepared to make a show that followed Home Improvement. And once they figured out that that's what was happening, were not willing to change gears. And kind of at that point were unable to change gears because they had already gone all in on their like very weird comedy aesthetic.
Yeah, okay. No, that does make sense. Like, because I remember seeing the show and I'm like, this show is incredibly funny.
Yeah.
And then I remember reading later that like, it was kind of like a weird launching pad for a bunch of people who have gone on to become super famous comedians.
Yeah, well, specifically, Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert were both on it, and that was like both of their first gigs.
Yeah, and it was this fantastic show, and then it just disappeared, and it never made sense to me. Looking back, putting it right after Home Improvement
Yeah. So if you want to get a sort of a good like picture of that show, it's a cool documentary that talks to all those people. You know, talks to Dana Carvey and like Carell and Colbert and other people who are involved in the show, Robert Smigel. But after it, because I was watching it with our sister Katie, who like kind of remembered the show, but not really. There was one bit that I wanted to find, and I was trying to find it on YouTube. It was from the episode that was sponsored by Mountain Dew, where it's Dana Carvey and another guy sitting at a table looking at a glass of Mountain Dew, and Dana Carvey asks the other guy what it looks like, and is clearly trying to get him to admit that the glass of Mountain Dew looks like urine, but the other guy just insists on continuing to say, like, it looks like pure mountain refreshment.
Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten that bit, and then as soon as you started saying it, I was like, yep, I remember that bit. It's really good.
So here are the two things that I discovered in looking for that bit. One, that bit lasts like 30 seconds. I thought that was a very long sketch because it stood out so much in my memory. The other thing that I discovered is that I couldn't find it on YouTube because it was on Hulu, because not only did they make this documentary, but all 8 episodes of the Dana Carvey show are on Hulu now.
Hey, nice.
So you can actually just watch this dang thing, and you should. It is madness. I
would like to go back and watch it now because it's been a really long time.
Yeah.
And it's probably a lot weirder than I remember.
Oh, dude, it is. Anyway, so that is just sort of a general recommendation. Go out and at least watch the documentary, and then if it seems interesting to you, watch a few episodes of the Dana Carvey show because it was wild.
So, Matt, what is our 5th star of the week?
Dave, our 5th star of the week is a commute update.
Commute update.
Man, it's been a minute since we had a commute update.
I know. And listen, I feel like all of the commute updates now are just part of like one string, because I only remember about the commute update when I see something that latches into the old theory that we were working on about the fleet of like highway pirates that move up and down the interstate between my house and my work.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I saw something the other day, and it was like a red sort of like panel van, like a panel van, like a work.
I'm familiar with
van. It was painted all red. On the driver's side door, it said celebrating 75 years of service. Nowhere on the van did it indicate a brand or service that had been provided for 75 years. It's like they had painted over everything else except for the bit that told you that they'd been around. And I might not have remembered this, except that on the back door of this, one of the 2 van doors, there was, not big, but big enough to notice, a smallish silver skull and crossbones.
Matt, okay, listen. I believe you because, we don't make things up for this show, but that is the only reason I believe you. I just want it to be very clear that, I am taking it on faith that you're not lying to me and making up a bit for this show. But it 100% seems like you were just making up a bit for this show.
Hey, man, listen, I know. This sounds like a fiction. Because because what do we have now? We've got the cement mixer. We've got the truck.
Yeah.
Like the freighter truck. And now we've got this
Dr.
van.
007.
We've got this van, which is basically like... I'm thinking like the speedboat / dinghy of the fleet. Like, it's a little more maneuverable than the bigger ones, but you can still fit a bunch of people in it for like a boarding party. Anyway, that's it. I just want to let you know that the fleet has been growing.
Okay. That's maybe the best thing I've heard all day. So that's it for the 5 stars. Matt, what's next?
Dave,
that was a weird outro because we know what's next.
Yes, what's next is that we're going to take a break. We're going to watch episode 3 of Chouriki Sentai Ohranger, Crisis, The Secret of the Chouriki, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back. So we just finished watching episode 3. Dave, this is, I think, the first episode that has the team already formed at the beginning of it, right? Because the last episode, they were still getting stuff together.
Yeah, that is correct.
So it's kind of our first monster of the week, and I think we're starting off pretty strong on these.
So, man, this episode starts off with like a flashback of the last 2 episodes, like it normally does. And I normally wouldn't talk about it, except there was something I noticed in there, which is, so the Ohrangers are powered by technology from this ancient super civilization.
You got it?
And I keep waiting for them to give it a name. And I think they're not at this point, I think they're not going to.
Well, I think that later in this episode, it is referred to as the capital S, capital C super civilization.
Yeah.
Which I think is just kind of what they're going to do.
Yeah, it just seems like they're just sticking with the super civilization. And I really, it just seems like a weird creative choice. Like, just, like, call it Atlantis, man. Like, whatever. It's just the super civilization. But anyways. So we open up this episode on the moon, actually, where Bacchus Wrath, Emperor of the Baranoia Empire, Machine Empire, is furious. He's so angry.
Oh, he's got wrath right in the name, Dave. I know I made that joke last week, but I'm going to keep doing it. He is angry at not only that the Ohrangers defeated Barasaucer, but that the Ohrangers exist. He's kind of offended.
He does seem like affronted somehow. Like, how dare they? And so he says, we'll show them, and he sends out even more flying base saucers to attack Earth. So we flip from there, and we see the base. We see the, I don't know if they have a name for it, but the O base, the Ohrangers base of operations. And it's an emergency, because Baranoia is approaching Earth. And so they're like, all right, scramble. I was about to say scramble jet fighters, but they basically scramble jet fighters.
Yeah, and what I like about this a lot is that we see one of the Baranoia flying saucers, like, beam down the monster for this week, who is Baravanish, and then fly away. And so, like, that is sort of how they know that a new monster has come. They haven't, like, been magically teleported to the Earth's surface. Like, somebody came and dropped them off. And so the Ohrangers are like, okay, well, we know there's going to be a problem because... this just went down.
Yeah. So they scramble jet fighters, and it is Goro and what are the 2 guys' names again?
Yuji and Shohei.
Yuji and Shohei. Okay.
Yuji is the Blue Ranger. Shohei is the Green Ranger.
Okay. So Goro and Yuji and Shohei kind of like launch out, and I'm not going to mention it again. I probably will. I'm going to be honest. I never get tired of watching jets like launch out of the side of a mountain.
Oh, it's the best, especially when there's a perpetual snowstorm outside of that mountain.
Yeah, which I do sort of wonder where in Japan they're supposed to be.
I think it's just that they're high enough up on a mountain that like...
Oh, okay. I'm into that. That's cool. So here we see Bear, and then we flip back to the city, and we see Baravanish. And Baravanish, he's got a really cool look. It's like a big round torso, but it's
not like a sphere, like a disc.
Like a saucer more. Yeah. And it's got, man, I wish there were more like distinctive elements. I think it's just the easiest way to say it is it's got a big round body, and it's just like a really neat looking robot. Like the lines are cool, and it's got like cool detailing on it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's not as though like, oh, here's a cool robot that looks like a drill. It's like, nah, here's just like a big sort of disc robot that looks neat.
Yeah. So we
he lands and he immediately vanishes. Like there's sort of like a wavy, transparent effect, and then he's just gone.
Yeah, well, that's so that's where the name comes from. He can, in fact, turn himself invisible, and so he's got one. He's got one sort of like crusher ball hand, and then he's got one like grippy hand.
Yeah, and he's got sort of like a nodule in the center of his chest that might be an eye and might be like something else. We're not exactly sure at this point.
Okay, so anyways. And then it's just we get the opening of the episode, and then we're kind of into it properly.
Yeah, we cut to some kids who are playing on a pier. They're having a snowball fight, just like
Super
kids
fun.
being kids.
Yeah, and one of the kids, he kind of sees something flashing over in the snow, and he runs over and he picks it up, and It can't be, but it looks for all intents and purposes like a very large diamond.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a
maybe
shiny
it's supposed
rock,
to be
I think. Like a hunk of quartz or something.
Yeah, I also want to point out that none of these children are dressed for winter at all.
Oh, not even a little bit.
Yeah, like this kid is wearing shorts, I think, and this was the 90s, so these shorts are short.
Yeah, he does. Well, it's the early 90s. If it was the late 90s, those shorts would be long.
Oh, yeah, good point. Good
point. He's wearing like a denim jacket and shorts, and he's got a fanny pack on. And in the fanny pack, he zips it open, and he puts the rock inside, and it's full of other like cool looking rocks.
Yeah, there's like a shell in there and stuff. And then Bara Vanish just like appears and attacks. Like appears and attacks that kid.
Yeah. Goro, who is flying above in a jet, like just sort of flying above the city, immediately sees this happen. Like he is on the point, sees it going down, says like, aha, there he is. And then proceeds to do the riskiest possible maneuver. So Bara Vanish is holding this kid, right? Like physically holding the child. And Goro is flying above the city in a jet fighter.
Yup.
Here's his move. He presses a button on his console. He drops out of the bottom of his jet fighter, which then I guess goes into autopilot and flies away, while Goro falls out while like on his motorcycle.
Yes.
He does not then land the motorcycle and chase after Bara Vanish.
No, he does not.
He lands the motorcycle into Bara Vanish. This is how exacting his trajectory is. That he can fall on a motorcycle out of a jet fighter from the sky and hit Bara Vanish without even scratching this child. It is astonishing.
Listen, Matt, you don't get to be the leader of the Ohrangers for nothing.
That is true.
Listen, the other four have already said that they are the best of the best that the United Air Force has to offer, and Goro is the boss of them. So, this is the caliber of man that we are dealing with. And you know what? I think it's the best demonstration of the caliber of man that we're dealing with is that he crushes that move.
Oh, he does it. He does it so well that the first time I watched the episode, it did not even strike me as an insane move because it's just like, oh yeah, sure, he just does that. That's cool.
And so he does this. So the kid. Oh, we find out the kid's name is Kenichi Matsumoto.
Yes.
And he sort of like knocks him out of the way in a safe way, but then Bara Vanish again vanishes. And Goro but then Goro gets attacked again. And after a couple of things happen, like Bara Vanish gets in a couple of invisible shots, and they do a really good job of selling that.
Well, they do a cool thing where it looks like Bara Vanish is dragging him around, which what probably means is they just have like a thin cable attached to like a truck that is driving off camera, and it makes it look like Goro's being dragged around by nothing.
Yeah, it's a good look though. So at this point, Goro figures out, oh, okay, this must be some sort of like invisibility monster. Like that's what this dude's thing is. And then we get a cool. It's not super long, but we do get a cool dogfight. Yeah, because Yuji and Shohei are still up in the air, and there are the I can't remember the name of them, but basically like the Bara flyers, like the Bara jet fighters. Yeah. And so we get a cool dogfight there.
Because like Yuji sees Goro, he's flying above. He's like, oh, something's happening. Something's attacking the captain. I can't figure out what it is. And he wants to go down to help, but he gets like caught up in this dogfight.
Yeah. So at this point, it's not super clear exactly how Bara Vanish's invisibility works, because like it seems to be fading in and out at semi-random times. So it's not clear if we're in like an invisibility spell sort of situation where like you're invisible until you attack someone, or maybe like the field itself is limited. Like he can only be invisible for like a minute and a half at a time or something. Like. Because he's definitely not invisible all the time.
Right.
But it's not clear yet, like, what precisely is making him turn invisible again.
He is certainly invisible enough to be a nuisance.
Yeah. So Goro grabs Kenichi, and he's like, okay, we gotta go. And so they run over, and he just jumps in a car.
Oh, because the
car just has the keys in the ignition.
Okay, so Bara Vanish has grabbed Kenichi again.
Oh, that's right.
And so Goro, to save him, pulls off another vehicular, like, attack, hops in, as you say, I think it's like a late 80s Honda Civic.
You would know better than I would.
Well, I used to drive a late 80s Honda Civic. And
that's what I said.
When he hopped, well, yeah, I was just explaining it to our listeners who do not necessarily know what my car used to be. He hopped in the car and I looked at it and I had this like weird flash of like, oh my gosh, that's my car.
Well, it wouldn't have been your car for long because whoever's car it was, they just left the keys, as I said, in the ignition. Which, who does that?
Well, it was good news for Goro because Goro hops in this Civic and just rams it into Baravanish, who is, again, physically holding Kenichi in this moment. Kenichi's fine. Kenichi is A-okay.
Listen, man, this is Goro we're talking about.
So he stops the car. Kenichi hops in. They drive off.
So they're driving, and what we see is that they go into a tunnel, and when they get into the tunnel, Baravanish like starts pounding on the top of the car, and he appears again, and so he's like, we get a couple. It's a cool couple of shots where he's like, he punches through the car, and he's like trying to get the kid, and Goro is like trying to drive in such a way to knock him off. He's not ultimately successful. Well, sort of. They just crash.
Well, okay, so they get out of the tunnel, and Baravanish disappears again once they sort of get out of the tunnel, and the car sort of flips over, and Goro manages to like protect Kenichi as they're crashing. Like, he sort of like gets his arm up to like make sure that he's braced against the seat. But when they land, Baravanish is sort of like trapped under the car, right? Because he was on the roof, the car has flipped, and now he's sort of like under the car. Goro and Kenichi,
visible again.
Yeah, and Goro and Kenichi use this opportunity to like run away as the car explodes.
Yeah. So we see the flyers, the Bara flyers, flying around. They get in, they shoot at Goro and Kenichi, but they miss, and then Goro and Kenichi end up in a tunnel. Like, they just find like a tunnel, and then the flyers are like, okay, well, we can't get down there, so they leave.
And it is at this moment that I pause and have sort of a moment of silence for that late 80s Honda Civic, because it was in such good condition, Dave. And if they just hadn't blown that up, maybe I could have had that car someday, because all I want in my life is to go back to driving a late 80s Honda Civic. And I know they're not the perfect car, but you know that thing when you see like your first car?
Yeah. Oh, I've got a soft spot in my heart.
Anyway,
I'm not going to say.
That's not really related to this episode, except that I had a very strong feeling while watching it that I wanted to share with you.
Although I will say, man, I feel like you could probably find a late 80s Honda Civic if you wanted one.
Nah, they all got traded in when they had the Cash for Clunkers thing. There's not a lot on the road anymore.
So anyways, Goro hops on comms, and he is trying to get a hold of Base, but comms are down. He can't get through to anybody, and he's like, you know what? This might be... He's like, we got to figure this out. They might be somehow blocking our communications. The Baranoia Empire, that is. So he turns to Kenichi, and he says, listen, these Bara enemies are very clearly after you specifically. Do you have any idea? Like, do you know why that is? Do you have any do you have a guess? Like, why are they after you? Now, despite the fact that this kid got attacked literally seconds after picking up like a brand new shiny rock that he had never seen before, he says, no, I have no idea, and I'm really scared and confused. Now, it is going to turn out that rock has nothing to do with why he is being attacked by the Bara.
Literally nothing. It is a complete coincidence.
It's a total freak out on their part. But the fact that Kenichi doesn't say, like, well, I don't know, I picked up this weird rock, like, literally seconds before it happened, maybe that has something to do. Like, it was a good fake out on the part of the writers that it wasn't had anything to do with that rock, because, like, we, the audience, obviously assumed that is the case. But the fact that Kenichi is flabbergasted makes no sense to me.
Well, Kenichi lives this sort of lifestyle where he's picking up a lot of rocks. That does not strike him as a weird thing to have happened in his day. And we know this because his fanny pack is full of fancy rocks. And as he's talking about being scared, he opens up the fanny pack and pulls one of these rocks out. And he's sort of holding it and looking at it and closing his eyes. And Goro's like, hey, dude, nice rock. What's up?
And he says, oh, I got this rock years ago with my dad.
And we cut to a flashback.
Yeah. So we get this flashback scene, and it's Kenichi and his dad, and they are standing in a river, and the dad picks this rock up, and he kind of he explains how erosion works.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, this is how rocks go from being large rocks to small and smooth rocks.
But he sort of talks about it in a way that like personifies the rock, like to get to the point where it is in your hand and small and smooth and in this river, it has had like this whole life of where it started and how it got here and so forth. So like even these things are in their own way sort of alive and struggling to survive.
Yes,
his dad is like a park ranger. Yeah. Oh, also, his dad is played by the same actor who plays Burai, the Green Ranger in Zouranger.
Oh, thanks, Matt. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, he does say, like, everything, the dad says. He says, everything is working hard to survive. Which, if that is a thing, like, I get it. And if that is a thing you were going to say, that's a good thing to... And he talks about, like, the journey that things take and how, like, we're all sort of connected in a way. Which, like, that's cool. And if that's a lesson you want to teach your kid, like, that is great and makes a ton of sense. But you are literally talking about a rock that is not alive.
Well,
and so does not need to struggle to... It's a rock.
Well, Dave, Listen, we needed to get two things across here. We needed to get across that his dad was a good guy who liked talking about the Earth surviving. And we also needed to get across that Kenichi picks up a lot of rocks. Because that is an important part of this episode.
Man, I feel really silly. I was so excited to talk about this scene. There's a scene we totally missed. It's a very brief one, and we go... Because it takes place on the moon, and we see Bulldont, which is the awful son prince of Bacchus Wrath. Mm-hmm. And he's furious because they didn't get this kid. And the reason that they want this kid, that they want Kenichi, is that Bulldont thinks that this kid knows something about Chouriki energy / like Chouriki technology.
Yes. Oh, we also in this moment have a brief scene at the headquarters where Momo and the chief and Jurai are researching this kid to try to figure out like who is this little kid and why would the Paranoia be after him.
Yeah. Now, I would just like to point out that Momo and Juri are back at the base on comms, while the dudes are out in jet fighters, which is a little uncool.
It is a little uncool.
It's a lot uncool, guys. Just wanted to point that out.
Now, as it happens,
we have already established that Momo and Juri are like super competent, jet peoples. Now, I don't know what they would be, but the gunners, maybe?
Jet peoples. As it happens, they back at the base are being way more useful than Yuji and Shohei are just like flying around aimlessly. But the fact remains that, they should not be stuck on comm duty. So we cut back to this underground tunnel where Goro and Kenichi is. And of course, Goro has not been able to talk to anybody, so he does not know that there is anything special about this kid. He's like, what on earth is happening? But he does not have time to really think about what is happening because the sort of grunt Barra soldiers show up in the other end of this tunnel and start chasing them out again.
Yes.
We cut back to the headquarters. Juri is like, oh, I know who this kid is, and pulls up like a picture of him. Like she has finished doing her research. The chief looks at Kenichi and is like, oh, I know this kid. Like, I now understand why they're after him.
So, what we find out is that Kenichi's proclivity for picking up rocks that he notices, like, here's why it's important. This kid, Kenichi, is the one who found the very first, like, stone tablet fragment in the super civilization ruins.
Yeah.
And, like, sent it into or he gave it to his dad, and his dad sent it into wherever. And the chief got a hold of it, I guess because he's the archaeology whatever. And he's like, we got to go figure out what's going on. And he went back to that site where Kenichi had found this first piece, excavated it, found the rest of the tablet explaining like how Chouriki energy works, and then used that to build the entire O program.
Yeah, and so if the Baranoia Empire can get a hold of this kid, they can like use... Okay, so like Momo and Jury say like, well, yeah, but this was 2 years ago and this is a 9-year-old kid. Like, he doesn't have any useful information. And the chief says, well, yes, but the Baranoia Empire can probably use some sort of crazy science machines to like read his memories, and like somewhere in his brain trapped away is like the image of this fragment that he found. And if they can find that, they might be able to extrapolate sort of how Chouriki works. And if they can break that code, then we're in trouble because they sort of might be able to find a weakness to our power.
Yeah.
So like we need to figure this out.
The only chunk of Chouriki information that Kenichi has like theoretically lodged in his brain someplace is maybe like 5% of this tablet.
Yeah, but you know,
straight up, if Baranoia can both use ultra science to extract that 5%, and then from that 5% about Chouriki information, extrapolate the remaining 95%. I'm going to be real. Bacchus Wraths claim that they are like gods and deserve to run everything. He's not too far off. Good on you, if you manage that one Baranoia Empire, yeah, okay, you guys deserve it. You guys can go ahead and be the overlords. I'm not even sure how you would have pulled that one off.
But thankfully, we are not left to that dark fate.
Yeah, that's. Listen,
as you will find out by the end of this episode.
Yeah. So, where we go to this factory.
Oh yeah, because Goro and Kenichi have been chased into this abandoned factory warehouse thing.
Yeah, and Vanish attacks them. And they sort of dodge out of the way and manage to dodge in such a way that they also they use their rogue bonus action to hide while running. And so they're hidden, and Vanish is stomping around the factory looking for them. And as he is stomping around the factory, he steps in front of a doorway, and there's light shining in from the doorway. And when he steps in front of the doorway, he turns invisible. And then when he steps back into the shadows of the factory, he becomes visible again.
Yes. So Goro is able to figure out, he is somehow using, solar radiation to power his invisibility circuits or something.
It's something like that. But the end result is he's only visible, or he's only invisible when he is in full light.
Yeah, full sunlight.
Yeah, which is, I think, is that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
So
it sort of feels backwards of how an invisibility power should work.
I think that's kind of why I dig it. Yeah, exactly. You would expect he's invisible in the shadows, but no, this dude's only invisible when it's super bright out. Which, when you think about it, is actually way more useful.
Oh yeah.
So
Buldon shows up.
Yes. He notices Goro and Kenichi immediately.
Oh, yeah. Straight off. He zaps them with a laser. They sort of fall out of their hiding place. Goro grabs Kenichi and they run outside. At this point, he is tired of running. And he performs his Chouriki Henshin and becomes O-Red. And it is, as always, very cool.
Yeah, now actually, Matt, let me jump back a little bit, because they spend a few seconds running, and they have been running for a really long time, and I really dig how long they have Goro. In the context of the episode, I really dig how long they have Goro wait before he drops the Henshin. They're really doing a great job of selling the idea that listen, man, this is a once per day maybe power that you can use before it's would be too much. Mm-hmm. And Goro is really hesitant to use it until it's clear that he absolutely has to, and this is the moment.
Yeah. Now, I would not be surprised if in later episodes of this season they pull away from that a bit, just for sort of storytelling convenience. But I'm willing to headcanon that by saying his body has gotten used to it at this point.
Well, we saw last episode when after their very first Henshin, the other four were obliterated, And Goro is like tired, but like largely okay.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh yeah, it was like that for me at first, and now I've kind of gotten stronger and like better at it." And so the idea that like as time progresses, they could use this power more frequently absolutely makes sense. But I like the fact that it's early on. He's like, "Listen, it's just really, really hard to use this superpower." And so when he does do it, it's like an immediate. It cranks the drama up because it's like, oh, now it's like really, really on. As opposed to the Kaku Rangers who changed to like use the bathroom faster.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, we got knocked out of our power, blah blah blah. So
he henshins, and then actually at the same time, the other four show up. They see that like Goro has transformed and is fighting, and they're like, okay, like this is what's up. It's time to get into this fight.
Yeah. So they all henshin, and then they sort of like get together somehow because it's not. So Goro was like up on top of these like large industrial things. I don't know what they are, and they're all down on the ground. But then they all get up to him. Maybe super jump. Maybe it doesn't. We don't see it happen. They're just there, and then they do the Ranger pose,
which is really cool because it's the same Ranger pose they did last episode, but in the first time they did it, if you go back and watch episode 2, they're not like super in sync when they do like they've got like a series of motions they're all supposed to do at the same time in unison to look cool, and they kind of don't pull it off the first time they do it, but this time it's a lot better.
Nice.
And I'm like, listen, that is probably just like the actors not being used to it yet, but I am choosing to believe that is also like in story. Like, oh yeah, like yeah, they're getting used to it. It's fine.
We're getting there. So then we just go into a fight, and it's the Ohrangers versus the Bara soldiers, and Bara Vanish is kind of like he's not really in this part of the fight because as soon as they all show up, he vanishes.
Yeah, and this is the fight of like the Ohrangers versus the Bara soldiers. There's most of it like it's a cool fight, and I think I'm going to really like watching the Ohranger fights because all the different Ohrangers have a different fighting style, which is a bit that I always loved in a like Power Rangers or Sentai show.
Yeah, and we had it in Die Ranger, and it was really fun. And then once we got like Jetman and Kaku Rangers, is largely not the case, but we're back to that now.
There's one shot in the fight I want to point out where like it's a
is it Jury ruining fools with nunchucks?
No, but
my favorite
part. But that's amazing. No, it's actually just a really cool bit of camera work where like the camera is sort of low to the ground, and it's on like this panning tracking shot as Goro is just sort of like moving forward through all of these dudes and beating them up and hitting them with his sword and stuff. It's just a really cool like long panning track shot. It's great.
Yes, that is really cool. It reminded me, Matt, of one of my favorite moments from one of my favorite video games.
Oh yeah?
Shenmue. And I won't tell you about that moment because like 6 people have played Shenmue. That's not true. More people have played it, but it's a really great. If you played Shenmue, it's the one where he's in the alleyway and it's like a really long quick time event, and the protagonist is just like walking down the alleyway, just like crushing nerds. It's amazing.
Nice.
So anyways, so then again, Jury is ruining fools with those nunchucks, which is great. Then Bara Vanish, he doesn't appear, but he does grab Kenichi.
Yes, and so he grabs him.
Kenichi gets dragged away by the invisible Bara Vanish.
Yes, and then Bulldome shows up and says, hey, it's time for you to use... Does he have a name for whatever this device is?
He does. He says, you're the only one... Which is a nice bit of story closing off. He says, Bara Vanish, it's time. You're the only one who can get this information by using your navel cord technique.
Oh, that's right, because...
And I want to be clear, it is not navel like boats and ships. It is navel like your tongue.
Yeah, like, because some wires come out of his belly button, which was like...
Which
sort
I
of
guess is what that big dome thing is in the middle of him. That's his belly button.
And like a little hat falls on top of Kenichi's head, and Bara Vanish, on top of being able to disappear, also has the ability to zap your head with lasers and then project your memories in this giant holographic image in the sky.
Yeah. So he starts doing that, and it's cool because he doesn't just like immediately grab the memories he wants. He has to sort of like run backwards and sift through memories to find the thing he's looking for, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, so it's originally showing like memories from earlier in this episode, and they're like, no, go back a couple of years, and he's like scrolling back through basically,
which is neat. And then so we see O-Red. He's like, oh no, what are we gonna do? Like we have to stop him from getting these memories. And it seems like the way the camera work plays, it seems as though O-Red has figured out this like awesome plan where he's gonna like do something with sunlight to like mess up Baravanish because he knows that like Baravanish relies on sunlight, and so he like drops down and he pulls out Star Riser, which is like his cool sword, and then he just uses it to blast Baravanish.
Yeah, because apparently the Star Riser, like the star that is like the hilt guard or whatever, is also a laser blaster, and he just uses that to shoot Baravanish in the belly button, which is again like millimeters away from Kenichi's head.
It's closer than that. It's literally on his head. And so so like I thought there was going to be a thing. No, he just shot him. And so Baravanish, he drops Kenichi and he sort of falls over the side, but he survives. Then we pan down to the bottom and he gets back up, and then the Rangers are there. And they all kind of hit him at the same time with their weapons, which makes a lot of sense, except for, I can't remember what they're called, but there's a special name for them, but Yuri's nunchucks. Because
the twin baton.
Thank you, the twin batons. Everybody else sort of like goes and like smacks Baravanish with their weapons, but I guess it would just have been awkward for her to use the nunchucks. So what you see is that she's got just both nunchucks in her hand, and then she just sort of pokes Baravanish with the chain end.
It's a little awkward, but it's fine.
Yeah, it is. So then they do the blaster and the smasher, like the King Blaster, and then O-Red uses the King Smasher. Oh, and then he goes over the side, sorry.
Yeah.
And then they use the Big Bang Buster. The Big Bang Buster.
And that is it for Baravanish. It is early enough in the season that the Big Bang Buster is more than enough to take care of these monsters.
Yeah. So they unhenshin. And everybody is actually already, the other four Rangers are a little more put together this time.
Yeah, like they are not as exhausted as they had
take
been.
As much out of them. So we flash up to the moon real quickly, and we see Emperor Bacchus Wrath. And he's furious. He's like, that was our only chance to get this information. Which tells us... Okay, clearly this tells us something about the Machine Empire.
Right.
Because my immediate question is...
Why don't they just build a new one?
Yeah, it's like, you guys are all robots. Just build another one. So clearly... But they can't... so obviously they can't just build another one. So we must be in some sort of, like... Transformers style situation where they are robots, yes, but, like... There is some sort of like Allspark style,
right? Like they are a
machine life to them.
Yeah, they are a race of robotic life forms or like of mechanical life forms, but they are not like machines that you can build.
Well,
except for maybe the cogs, because the cogs are like we see a factory where they are being built.
I was good.
I'm sorry, they're not cogs. Cogs are what they are called in Power Rangers Zeo.
They're cogs, basically. Yeah, it's the Bara soldiers. Like those dudes clearly are just straight up robots. They're just machines, and they can be built. But I guess the other monsters are not. They are some sort of sentient machine,
right? Or so we, it's episode 3.
We would assume based on this piece of information.
Like we will, I guess, continue to figure that out as we move along.
Yeah. So Kenichi runs over and he's like, Mister, like I'm okay. Which. Goro, did you never introduce yourself?
They were busy, man.
He says, like, Kenichi, hooray, Kenichi, we did it. And he's just calling him Mister. So maybe it's like a thing of translation and he's just being polite. But I think it's funnier if we assume that Goro just never introduced himself. But he says, listen, Kenichi, you clearly know something. Like, or you clearly are a target. Because they did figure out why. He says, listen... The Baranoia Empire is going to continue to target you.
Or may continue to target you.
Yeah, they might. But, like, we will keep you safe. Like, we got you. We will keep you and the rest of planet Earth safe because we are the Ohrangers.
And
then and then that's it.
Yeah. This episode rules. It's a really great introduction to sort of the Monster of the Week formula for at least the next couple of episodes.
Yeah. Again, like, man, if this, man, somebody already told us that, like, it does change a lot and gets less cool, but, like, these first couple episodes of Ohranger, like, rule super hard.
Yeah, I am hoping that they will sort of at least, even if the rest of the show is not cool in this way, I am hoping that, like, I will have enough sort of, like, good feelings momentum based on these first, like, 8-10 episodes to really carry me through a long way.
Yeah. So, Matt, last thing to do, where does Baravanish go on the Creature Royale?
Okay. I really like him.
Yes.
As like a gimmick monster of the week, I think, like, he is not the sort of cool gimmick that, like, the Space-Time Mammoth or the God Noodle is. But yeah, just as, like, a monster that doesn't have a lot of character, but has a very specific set of abilities that make for a cool episode hook, I think that Baravanish works really well.
Yeah, well, I am wondering how much sort of personality we're ever going to see out of these monsters. Because so far, like, Bar Drill, Bar Saucer, and Baravanish have all just been like, they showed up and they fought, but that's basically it.
I can tell you, having gotten a little further in this series than you are, that some of these monsters really do have a personality.
Okay, no, that's great. I'm glad to hear that, because I think it's going to make things a lot more fun.
But as for this monster, gosh, man, I don't know.
Well, okay. Like we said, he's got a really cool look. Mm-hmm. Like, he looks really, really, I think he looks neater than any of the other bar monsters we've seen so far. And he's got like a cool, as you said, a cool power hook. So I'm kind of looking around for somebody else who I think is, like, got a neat power, but maybe themselves is not, like, you know, like, there's not a ton going on.
Okay, well, what about Copy Empress?
Oh, okay. Where's she on the list, Matt?
Copy 59. Empress is currently number 59 on the list. Now, I think I actually like Copy Empress more than Baravanish, but I think that's at least a decent place to start.
Well, right below that is Kanagama, the slot machine dimension, which, if I recall correctly, is the one that had, like, the bad luck coins, right?
Yes.
So that's also, I think, it's, you know, kind of a neat hook.
Yeah, but that's still pretty high above, like, the Snake Armor and the Four Kings of Heaven and Duke Trump and the Purse Monk. Man, do you think that anything's ever going to get in between Duke Trump and Purse Monk?
That's a tough call, Matt. I don't know.
They just seem very... They're nicely paired there on the list, and they've been together for so long. I would feel so badly to break them up.
So, yeah, actually, Matt, now that you say that, I am looking around somewhere in that realm of, like, Snake Armor, Duke Trump, Purse Monk. I think the real question, Matt, is how far can Sick Dunks carry the Purse Monk?
Well, Dave, it's been a while since you've seen the episode, so maybe you've forgotten just how sick those dunks were.
They are really sick dunks.
Now, the Purse Monk did not actually understand what a slam dunk was most of the time, because he just referred to everything that he did as a slam dunk, but he was very cool, and he put weird masks on people's heads and gathered them together to be sacrificed in a bizarre ceremony, the actual purpose of which I never quite understood.
Yeah. So, you know, actually, where I'm looking is Nurikabe is the wall monster. He was another, like, it was very unusual. It was a really neat hook that I feel like they did a lot with, despite the fact that the monster himself was not really, did not really have a whole lot going on.
Okay.
I think I like Baravanish a little bit better than Nurikabe, and I think it's the look. I think Baravanish has a really, really cool look, whereas Nurikabe was kind of a weird chunk of a wall.
Yeah, Nurikabe definitely had an odd look.
So, Matt, are we cool with that? Just with at slot number 65, just above Nurikabe?
I think that works for me.
All right, man. Well, there we go. And that is going to do it for us.
Yes, that is going to do it for another episode of For Your Eyes, Ohranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you all you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. You want to get any updates on future episodes or check out the things that we're talking about on Twitter? We are at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the Apple Podcasts app or wherever it is that you find this show, there are 5 stars. Please rate, review, subscribe, wherever it is. That's what's going to help new people find the show. And that is always very nice. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.